Chad. Things are gonna get easier.
Today, I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to instantly improve your workflow when it comes to making DJ edits. So when I first started making edits, I did about 20 in a single day. Usually like on a Monday, I would make 20 edits in a day, and then I would send those in. And if we're counting clean and dirty here, let's say they're all dirty and then they all require a clean as well, I would export about 40 audio files in a day. So hopefully these tips will help you churn out edits of that quantity that you're looking for. First tip is to come with a plan. You should already have your edits laid out for the week that you want to make before you sit down in your session to make the edits. Don't just sit down and start like scrolling and being like, this looks good, this kind of looks good. Don't do that. I always, on Sundays, I would sit down, like whenever the fog of the weekend is gone, I would sit down and I make a list of the edits that I want to make for the week. So Sunday I sit down, go through the charts, things of that nature, songs maybe previously that I have stems for, acapellas, instrumentals, all that jazz. And then I would make a list like on a Todoist or something like that. I use Todoist now currently, which is like just like a Google Calendar sort of like checklist sort of app. So just use something like that, make a list, and then come into the session on Monday if you're sitting down to then make those edits and then execute on those ideas. So come up with your ideas on a separate day, make the outline, and then make those edits the next day. That's the first thing I always do when it comes to improving my workflow. The next step I have is something that I've done recently that I find really helpful, is to make sure you have specific folders only for editing. So this computer here is pretty much only remixes and edits and things of that nature. I just got a new PC, so that's what I'm using this one for. And you can see here on my left section of Ableton, I have like something labeled crashes, effects. This is a Kaytranada drum kit, effects, more effects, all that jazz. So these are all labeled specifically for edits. So if I'm looking for like a hi-hat crash, I go to my crashes folder to then get the crash sample. Or if I'm looking for certain effects here, I have a noise fall. Just simple stuff like that makes a huge difference when it comes to making edits and improving your workflow. I know exactly what I'm getting going into each of these packs. So if I'm sitting there and I want a sweep or something like that, I'll go to my effects pack or one of the multiple effects packs that I have. I kind of know what's in each pack, so I kind of know what I'm looking for. If I'm doing like reggae or some sort of like more like tropical beat, I'll usually go into the Reed Stefan packs. Nitty gritty, more clubby stuff. Standard effects are always in here. This is an Abletunes pack. And if you get a certain pack, but you know what's in it, even if it does have a certain name, like this one was named Abletunes, but if you just right click on a pack, you can rename it. So when you import a folder originally into Ableton, it'll have that actual label pop up. But if you want to change it again, you can just right click on the folder and hit rename, and then you can rename that folder to something that might translate a little bit better in your brain when you're like reading down the list. And that's what I do. I renamed a few of these folders because this FX folder was originally titled Abletunes, and I just changed it to effects because that's everything that was in this pack was just effects. Okay, tip number 3 is to have a template. You should have an Ableton template for when you're going in and making your edits. You should have a specific template, or just whatever your default set is, you should make sure that it is set in a way that will help you make edits in a very quick manner. And that's what I have here. Is I have multiple return tracks that allow me just with one little flick of the mouse or a slider to apply the effect that I'm looking for. So for example, here I have a riser, and the reason there's a little bit of reverb on this effect, carries it a little bit further, is this slider over here on the right. Now, if you go over 1, 2, 3, this actually is my return track here, which is a long reverb send that I have here. So if you're looking to make your own return tracks, you would just come down here. You can right click on these audio tracks and then hit insert return track, and then you can make your own return track. So what I recommend doing is making any return tracks you have. So I have a short reverb, a medium reverb, a long reverb. I even have a delay and an echo as well. So these are all different effects that I use. So I don't have to constantly keep dropping in and then changing different things here and there. I have a general idea of what I want. So I already have these effects ready to go. And then once you make the return tracks you want, if you have a certain number of audio tracks you like to start with, or MIDI tracks, stuff like that with certain effects on it, make sure everything's set up the way you want it. And then once it's set up the way you want to, just go into options, preferences, and then you go to, what is it called? You go to file folder here, and then hit save current set as default. Hit save, and then it'll overwrite it. And then every set you open from there on out will have that default template for you moving forward. Okay, so tip number 4, which was actually taught to me by Isaac Jordan with Heavy Hits, funny enough, was to make sure that you put your clean and dirty in the same project, but on different audio tracks. So if you're trying to work really fast, you shouldn't be doing your clean edit on one, your dirty edit on another project. It should be in the same project. So you see how I have my clean and dirty overlapping here? When I'm going to export, I have my clean activated right now. If I just want to export my dirty edit, I'll just turn that off, turn that one on, and then I just go and export, and then I have my clean and dirty done immediately. So I just overlap the two, and then I just switch one off and then one on, and then you're good to go. And then both of your edits are exported in half the time because you don't have to remake the edit all over again. And the last tip I have for you, which is actually kind of cheating, which I recently started doing, but it's really, really helpful. If you have done multiple edits throughout like your lifetime or however long your DJ career or editing career has been, save all of those projects, especially if it's like a quantized acapella or something like that. That's like an oldie but a goodie or something like that. Make sure you're hanging on to that, because you can go back into those projects and utilize those things later. So for example here, this is just a brief example that I did with the new song Skate. So I actually have like a DIY acapella out. Standard, nothing crazy, simple acapella out. And then what I wanted to do was I actually wanted to add I'm Coming Out for like more of like a wedding or like more of like a outdoorsy set. It allows someone to kind of like spice up their DJ set that way. So I didn't feel like the effect was necessary, but I ended up taking it out, and then all I had to do was just drop in this intro version or instrumental, but in this case it was only a short section. So I just dropped that in there, quantized it, duplicated it a couple times, and then my edit was done. Like it was that easy. So the big takeaway here is to make sure you're recycling your projects or you're archiving them at all times, because the amount of time that I have saved not having to recreate a whole edit or going through and re-quantizing something is just been an absolute lifesaver that I've been doing recently, because I've built up a larger library of edits. So those sorts of things, if you're making edits or have been for a while, make sure you have a reliable place where they're at so that you can just go back into them and do slight little touch-up work, add a couple things here and there instead of having to recreate what you have already done. But with the instrumental and making the surprise edit, it sounds like this. Chef's kiss, just beautiful. Alrighty, ladies and gents, that wraps it up for today's video. Hopefully you learned something new. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I'll be back next week with another tip video for you on DJ edits. But until then, take it easy. Tell us one you love them, all that good stuff. And I'll be back soon.